What if everything you believe about attraction is wrong? What if the reason she's not interested in you isn't because of who you are, but because of how you see yourself? That single question, when answered honestly, can change your entire reality. Most men walk through life thinking attraction is something you either have or you don't. They believe women are born with a fixed radar for who's worthy and who's invisible. And when they face rejection, they take it as a permanent sentence instead of a passing signal. But here's the truth most people never hear. Attraction is not a gift you're born with. It's a state you create. There's something inside you, something raw and untapped, that can change how people respond to you. It's not about tricks. It's not about saying the right lines or faking confidence. It's about waking up to your own value, your own energy, and realizing that the way you feel about yourself is exactly how the world will reflect you back. You see, attraction is deeply emotional. It's not just visual, it's visceral. And women don't consciously choose who they're drawn to. They respond to how a man makes them feel. That's why someone who might not look like the ideal man can still capture attention. He radiates something. He owns who he is, and that energy makes all the difference. The problem is, too many men hand over their power before they even speak. They look at her, and instead of asking, "Do I like her?" they silently beg, "Will she like me?" That one mindset shift creates a ripple. It changes your posture. It changes your tone. It makes you chase. And when you chase, you tell her without saying a word that she's above you. But no one is above you. No one is better than you. The moment you understand that, the game changes. So why should you keep watching? Because what you're about to learn isn't just about women. It's about reclaiming your life. When you master attraction, you're not just learning how to get a date. You're learning how to lead, how to walk into a room and feel certain, how to stop shrinking yourself to fit other people's expectations. This journey will show you how to unlock something that's already inside you, something strong, something grounded, something magnetic. It doesn't matter if she wasn't interested before. That was a moment, not your identity. You're not here to chase approval. You're here to become undeniable, the kind of man who doesn't just attract, he inspires. And that kind of energy doesn't come from pretending. It comes from becoming, from stepping into your own presence, from owning your value so deeply that no rejection can shake you. That's what we're building, step by step. And if you stay with this, by the end, you won't just understand attraction, you'll become it. If you've ever felt like she's out of your league, that belief didn't come from truth. It came from fear. Fear disguised as logic. Fear reinforced by old experiences and quiet rejections you never fully healed from. You weren't born feeling unworthy. Somewhere along the way, someone or something made you believe that you didn't measure up, that you had to earn love by becoming someone else, that unless you looked a certain way, acted a certain way, or played a perfect game, you'd always be invisible to the women you actually wanted. But that belief is a cage, and you're not here to live in cages. You're here to break them. The truth is, every man who once felt powerless around women and later became magnetic didn't change who he was. He changed what he believed. He stopped seeing rejection as confirmation of his inferiority. He stopped measuring his worth by someone else's response. And he began to realize something most never do. Attraction is not about convincing someone you're enough. It's about knowing you already are, and letting that truth radiate so fully that it becomes undeniable. That belief is the turning point. When you stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself, everything shifts. But here's where most men get stuck. They think attraction is about getting her to like them. So they try to perform. They adjust themselves to her tastes. They dim their truth to fit her comfort. And in that process, they lose the one thing that creates real attraction: authenticity. You can't fake presence. You can't manufacture confidence. You either believe in who you are or you don't. And if you don't, she'll feel that. Women are intuitive. They sense when a man is anchored in himself and when he's just playing a role. And no matter how perfect your words are, if the energy behind them is rooted in insecurity, she won't feel pulled toward you. This is where your power begins, not in chasing her, but in chasing the highest version of you. The version that doesn't need approval to feel strong. The version that knows what he brings to the table. That walks into a room like he owns his space. That doesn't shrink around beauty, but sees beauty as a mirror, not a threat. When you drop the need to impress and replace it with the desire to express who you really are, you become magnetic without trying. The idea that she's out of your league only exists in a mind that's forgotten its own worth. But you're not that man anymore. You're waking up. You're shedding layers that never belong to you. And every layer you strip away reveals a version of you that doesn't chase women, because he attracts them by simply being real, being grounded, and being whole. That's the man who can pull any woman, not through tricks, but through truth. And that truth starts now. Attraction is not something that just happens. It's something that is felt, deeply, instinctively, and that feeling begins long before words are ever spoken. A woman doesn't decide to be attracted through logic. She feels attraction in her nervous system. It's unconscious, emotional, and primal. And what triggers that feeling isn't perfection, it's presence. It's the energy of a man who knows who he is, who owns the space he stands in, and who doesn't need her validation to feel alive. That energy is rare. That energy stands out. And that's the kind of energy you're building right now. You don't need to look a certain way to activate that response. You don't need money, status, or a carefully crafted image. What you need is depth. You need alignment. You need to be a man who is connected to something greater than approval. A man who is driven by mission, not by fear. A man who doesn't ask, will she pick me? But lives in a way that says, I choose who enters my world. That energy doesn't repel, it pulls. It awakens something inside her. Because every woman wants to feel a man's certainty. Not arrogance, not ego, but a deep, quiet certainty that says, I am enough, whether you stay or not. That level of presence can't be copied. It can't be faked. It can only be earned through self-respect, through doing the inner work, through showing up when no one's watching. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, every time you silence that voice that tells you you're not good enough, you're stepping deeper into the man she's looking for, even if she doesn't know it yet. You are becoming the man who makes her feel something she can't explain. Not because you're trying to impress her, but because you've built a life and a mindset so strong that it makes her feel safe, intrigued, and drawn in all at once. This is the truth most men never hear. Women are not attracted to potential. They're attracted to direction. If you don't know where you're going, she won't follow. But if your life is moving with purpose, with clarity, and with power, she will feel that momentum. She'll want to be close to it. That's why attraction is less about getting her attention and more about earning your own, becoming a man you admire. Because the moment you do, she will too. You are not here to be liked. You're here to be felt. And the man who is deeply felt is the man who leaves a mark. Not because of what he says, but because of who he is. That kind of man doesn't need to ask for attraction. He embodies it. He creates it. He becomes the source of it. And every woman, whether she knows it or not, is waiting to meet a man who moves from that place. Let that man be you. You can't fake energy. You can't fake presence. And you can't fake belief. A woman doesn't fall for your words. She falls for the man behind them. When your energy is calm, grounded, and unapologetically centered, she feels it without needing to understand it. That's what makes her look twice. That's what makes her wonder. It's not the way you dress. It's not how smooth your lines are. It's the way you walk into a moment without flinching, without needing to prove anything, and without collapsing under the weight of her attention. That kind of presence is rare, and that's why it's powerful. The truth is, women are constantly observing. Not in a conscious checklist kind of way, but through emotional signals. They notice the way you hold yourself, the way your eyes move when you talk, the way you speak when you're not trying to impress. They pick up on emotional tension like radar. And if your energy says you don't think you're enough, they'll feel it. That's not judgment. It's instinct. It's protection. A woman needs to feel safe before she can feel desire. Safe in your presence, safe in your strength. Safe knowing that you are solid, steady, and not emotionally chasing her approval like the others. When a man seeks approval, he weakens his signal. It's subtle, but it's real. Every time you try to win her by becoming what you think she wants, you lose her interest. Because deep down, she's not looking for someone to mold. She's looking for someone to follow. Someone she can trust. Someone who doesn't bend at the first sign of disapproval. That's what makes you magnetic. Not perfection, but certainty. Not dominance, but direction. Not control, but composure. You don't earn that by chasing her. You earn it by stopping the chase altogether and choosing to lead yourself. Respect always outweighs attention. You might get her eyes with charm, but you earn her heart with grounded strength. That means letting go of the need to be liked, letting go of the fear of not being enough, letting go of the mindset that says her validation defines your value. It never did. The moment you release that belief, you reclaim something far greater than attraction. You reclaim your freedom. You stop performing. You stop waiting. and you start standing in your own energy, your own truth, your own rhythm. The man who is most desired is the man who is most centered. He doesn't lean forward. He doesn't overreach. He stands still, not frozen, but anchored, unshaken by attention, unbothered by rejection. That kind of man doesn't try to be chosen. He simply is the choice. Not because he said the right thing, but because he became the right presence. That's what makes a woman stop, feel, and reconsider everything she thought she knew about attraction. Not because of what you offered her, but because of who you dared to become. Real power is quiet. It doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to prove, and it never needs to beg for attention. The strongest men in any room are the ones who don't try to dominate. They simply exist with such self-assurance that people feel it before a word is spoken. That's the kind of strength women are drawn to. Not the kind that flexes or competes, but the kind that rests calmly in its own presence. It's not loud, it's not showy, it's felt. And the more you lean into that stillness, the more magnetic you become. You don't need to chase attention when you command respect. That kind of respect starts within. It begins the moment you stop looking outside yourself for permission to feel worthy, because no amount of validation can ever replace the power of knowing who you are. Women sense that inner knowing. It's what tells them you're different. It's what creates that invisible pull, the unspoken feeling that you're a man who leads, not follows. That kind of energy doesn't ask to be chosen. It radiates from the core and makes everything else secondary. You become deeply attractive when your energy tells the world you don't need anything, but you're open to everything. That calm detachment, not from feeling, but from outcome, changes the entire dynamic. You're not reaching. You're not attached. You're not afraid of losing something you haven't even claimed. Instead, you're simply present. Present in your body, present in the moment, present in who you've decided to become. That stillness, that unshakable state, is what she feels. It's what makes her curious. It's what makes her lean in while every other man leans forward. You don't have to force attraction. The moment you stop trying so hard to be liked is the moment you become unforgettable. Women remember how a man makes them feel, not what he said, not what he wore, but the energy he carried. And if your energy is calm, certain, untethered from needing anything in return, you'll create a sense of emotional gravity that words can't fake. It's not about arrogance, it's about alignment. When your mind, your body, and your spirit are moving as one, you radiate a signal that can't be ignored. You don't earn attraction through performance. You command it through presence. And presence only comes when you've let go of trying to be anyone other than who you truly are. That means releasing the pressure to impress, dropping the habits built on fear, and rising into the man who no longer needs external permission to feel valuable. That man walks differently, speaks differently, breathes differently. And that difference is what she feels, even if she can't explain why. You are not here to chase approval. You are here to become undeniable. And the path to that isn't louder words or better lines. It's deeper roots, stronger silence, steadier breath. That's where real attraction begins. The man who commands respect doesn't speak louder, he listens deeper. He doesn't try to take control. He becomes it. Not by force, but by presence. Not by pretending, but by showing up fully in who he is. This kind of man understands that real attraction is built on depth, not noise. It's not about being liked by everyone. It's about being real enough to draw in the right ones. And when you build yourself into a man who doesn't flinch, who doesn't waver, who doesn't chase, the world starts to shift around you. Most people live their lives begging for attention while starving for respect. But when you operate from a place of truth, you stop begging. You stop bending. You stop giving your power away to people who haven't earned access to you. And that shift, that exact internal change, is what women feel. She may not know why she suddenly sees you differently, but she will. Because the energy of a man who has built inner value cannot go unnoticed. It lingers in the air. It speaks in silence. And it's always louder than words. You build that inner value not through ego, but through effort. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you become stronger. Every time you face your fears instead of folding, you become grounded. Every time you say no to something that disrespects your worth, you become more magnetic. This is how attraction is truly built. Not in the moment you meet her, but in the thousands of quiet moments where you chose growth over comfort. Those moments shape you. They sculpt your presence. They carve the edges of your identity. Until eventually, you walk into a room and don't need to say a word, because your energy already spoke for you. Women are not looking for perfection. They're not searching for someone who's never failed. What draws them in is the man who has fallen and risen, broken and rebuilt, doubted, and still stood tall. She's not drawn to your performance. She's drawn to your presence. She wants to feel that you are unshaken, that your self-worth doesn't rise and fall based on her reaction. Because when she feels your certainty, she feels safe. And when a woman feels safe, emotionally, mentally, energetically, she opens. Not because you pushed, not because you convinced her, but because your presence invited her in without pressure. You don't create that kind of presence by chasing it. You create it by becoming it, day by day, thought by thought, choice by choice. You become magnetic when you no longer need to be. You become powerful the moment you stop asking for permission. And when that happens, attraction is no longer something you try to get. It becomes something you naturally are. That's not fantasy, that's a decision, one you make right now, one that changes everything. Attraction isn't earned through performance, it's unlocked through identity. Not the identity you wear to impress others, but the one you create from within. When you build a life you're proud of, when you wake up with purpose, when your actions reflect discipline and direction, you begin to radiate something that cannot be faked. That radiance is not for show, it's for you. And when you own that energy fully, the world, especially the women around you, respond to it in ways you never expected. Not because you tried to win them, but because you finally stopped trying and started becoming. A woman doesn't want perfection. She wants presence. She wants to feel that you're emotionally anchored, not easily shaken by her moods, not lost in her silence, and not chasing her attention. What makes her lean in is the feeling of your inner stillness, that grounded space where she can feel safe, curious, and drawn to your calm strength. That's not something you find outside yourself. That's something you build through inner work. When you heal your self-perception, when you forgive your past, when you stop looking at love as a prize to win and start seeing it as something you naturally attract through truth, you unlock a new reality. Confidence is not loud. It's not aggressive. It's not about how many people you impress. Confidence is quiet certainty. It's the way you move through the world without trying to prove anything. It's the calm in your eyes when things don't go your way. It's the way you speak slowly, clearly, without rushing to fill the silence. That kind of presence tells her everything. It tells her that you don't need her to like you. You want her, yes, but you don't need her. And that difference is everything. Because when she senses you're not chasing validation, she starts questioning why she wasn't paying attention sooner. Your energy is your signal. And every day you make choices that either weaken or strengthen it. You weaken it when you betray your standards, when you lie to yourself, when you tolerate disrespect just to avoid being alone. But you strengthen it when you say no to what doesn't align with your values, when you stay loyal to your goals, when you walk away from what doesn't honor who you are becoming. That's when attraction starts to work in your favor. Not because of some secret strategy, but because your energy is finally congruent. And congruence is powerful. Women don't want a man who needs them to feel valuable. They want a man who already knows his value and invites them into a world built on truth, strength, and depth. You're not here to chase attention. You're here to embody gravity, that pull she can't explain, that energy she can't ignore. And the more you return to your center, the more effortlessly she'll be drawn to you. Not because you forced her interest, but because you gave her something real to feel. That's what changes everything. That's what makes you unforgettable. A woman feels most drawn to a man who brings her peace, not pressure. When your presence creates space for her to breathe, to feel, to be herself without judgment, something opens in her that logic cannot touch. Most men rush to impress, to pursue, to perform. But the man who moves with calm intention stands out because he creates emotional safety without saying a word. And when a woman feels emotionally safe in your presence, resistance dissolves, her guard softens, her interest grows. Not because you convinced her, but because you gave her something few ever do, an atmosphere of trust without need. This kind of energy isn't built on tactics, it's built on wholeness. A man who is whole within himself does not seek to fill his emptiness with her attention. He doesn't need to be validated to feel complete. He doesn't fear her distance because he doesn't lose himself in her presence. That stability is rare. It tells her that you're not here to take from her, but to share something real. When she senses that you don't need her to feel powerful, she starts to feel something deeper, curiosity. A quiet draw toward the strength she feels, even if she can't explain why. Emotional safety isn't weakness. It's not about being passive or overly agreeable. It's about being clear, grounded, and calm in the face of emotional waves. You don't flinch. You don't overreact. You don't chase after approval when it pulls away. You stay still, not as a tactic, but as a truth, because you've done the work to understand your value, and that value no longer fluctuates based on her attention. That is what makes you magnetic. That is what changes the dynamic completely. It tells her that you are the steady center, not just for her, but for yourself. When a woman meets a man like this, something inside her pays attention, because most of the world is noise. Most men are rushing, proving, trying too hard, but not you. You've learned that presence is more powerful than performance. That stillness creates attraction more than words ever could. That the energy you bring into a room speaks louder than any clever phrase. And so you walk differently, you breathe differently. You engage from a place of calm interest, not emotional hunger. That's what she feels. That's what makes her heart listen before her mind can speak. Attraction isn't just about how you look or what you say. It's about what she feels when she's near you. And what she feels is a direct reflection of your inner state. So if you want to change how women respond to you, don't start with them. Start with yourself. Create peace inside, and that peace becomes your power. Show up as a man who gives safety, not stress, certainty, not chaos, depth, not performance. Because once she feels that, she won't need to be convinced. She'll want to stay. Not because you asked her to, but because she feels the difference. Neediness repels, not because it makes you a bad person, but because it sends a silent message that your worth depends on her response. And the moment she senses that, the attraction starts to fade. It doesn't matter how kind, generous, or thoughtful you are. If your energy says, I need you to like me so I can feel enough, she will feel it in her body before her mind even tries to make sense of it. And that feeling creates pressure, not pull. Women aren't drawn to pressure. They're drawn to presence. And presence can only exist where neediness ends. The more relaxed you are, the more powerful your presence becomes. That doesn't mean being careless or passive. It means knowing your worth so deeply that you're unattached to outcome. It means showing interest without expectation. It means making your move without fearing her answer. This is the power of nonchalance, not indifference, but inner freedom. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not avoiding her. You're simply not addicted to her approval. And that kind of clarity creates a quiet confidence that most men never access. The less you try to control the moment, the more attractive you become within it. When a man is fully relaxed in his own skin, everything about him becomes magnetic. His voice slows down. His movements carry weight. His energy fills the space with calm authority. He's not trying to impress. He's simply being. And being, when grounded in self-worth, is irresistible. Because women feel that certainty. They feel the steadiness of a man who isn't performing, who isn't chasing, who isn't afraid of silence or rejection. He is here, fully. And that presence makes her feel seen in a way that most men can't give. Not because they don't want to, but because they're too busy proving instead of simply showing up. The irony of attraction is that the less you try to make it happen, the more naturally it flows. When you let go of the outcome, your energy shifts. You stop overthinking every word. You stop analyzing her every reaction. You stop waiting for signs of approval and start acting from a place of self-trust. That shift doesn't go unnoticed. She feels it. And even if she wasn't interested at first, something changes, because now she's not dealing with a man who wants her to complete him. She's experiencing a man who is already complete. And that energy is rare. That energy pulls her in without pressure, without demand, without desperation. The man who needs nothing attracts everything. Not because he's manipulating, but because his energy is clean, centered, whole. That's what women crave on a deep level. A man who is free within himself, because that freedom creates space. And in that space, attraction doesn't have to be forced. It arises naturally. So stop trying to earn her attention. Become the kind of man whose energy invites it without effort. When you no longer chase it, you begin to embody it. That's when everything begins to change. Curiosity is one of the most powerful emotional triggers in the human mind. When you become a man who sparks curiosity, you open the door to connection without ever needing to force it. Women are not pulled in by the obvious, they're drawn to the unknown. Mystery awakens emotion. It creates space for imagination. And the moment she starts wondering about you, you've already shifted the balance. You've already created a spark. not through pressure or pursuit, but through presence that invites her to explore rather than decide. You don't need to tell her everything. You don't need to overshare your achievements or prove your worth with words. Let your life speak. Let your actions hint at a depth she wants to understand. When your energy suggests there's more to discover, she leans in without realizing it. She begins to ask herself questions. Who is he? What drives him? What does he see that others don't? That inner dialogue, born from emotional intrigue, builds attraction faster than anything you could say out loud. When a woman is emotionally engaged, even slightly, her mind opens. And when her mind opens, so does the door to desire. You don't need to be mysterious by hiding or playing games. You simply need to stop giving everything away too soon. Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't need to overshare to be seen. Confidence understands that not everything needs to be said. Some things are better felt. Some things are better shown over time. And when you live with a clear sense of purpose, when your life is filled with meaning, discipline, and direction, that alone becomes a mystery worth unraveling. Make her feel something. That's the goal. You don't win a woman's attention by convincing her. You win it by awakening her. And awakening begins with energy. Are you calm, centered, and clear? Or are you trying, proving, and chasing? The more centered you are, the more unpredictable you become. Not because you're unreliable, but because your energy doesn't follow the patterns she's used to. Most men chase. Most men overtalk. Most men try to sell themselves before they even understand their own value. But not you. You've learned that you are the message, that your silence can speak, that your presence can provoke thought, and when you move from that space, she can't help but feel it. Create a life that invites questions. Build habits, passions, and values that stand on their own, not for her approval, but because they reflect the man you've chosen to become. When she meets you, don't rush to explain. Let her sense your depth before she knows your story. Give her space to wonder. Curiosity is not about withholding, it's about pacing. Emotion needs space to grow. And when you give her that space while standing fully in your power, you become the rarest kind of man, the kind she remembers, the kind she feels, the kind she wants to understand, even if she never expected to. There is nothing more magnetic than transformation. When you evolve, everything around you begins to shift. And yes, even the women who once overlooked you will feel that shift. Not because you forced it, but because who you've become no longer matches who you used to be. You're not here to dwell on the past, you're here to rise beyond it. To become so aligned with your new identity that the old version of you becomes irrelevant, not only to others, but to yourself. The past no longer defines you, it becomes fuel. Fuel for the man you're choosing to build, day by day, in silence, through discipline, through truth. People respond to energy, not memory. They don't see your history, they feel your frequency. And when your frequency changes, so does the way they experience you. A woman who wasn't interested before might not recognize it right away, but something inside her will feel different. She'll feel your detachment, your direction, your presence. And that shift, no matter how small, can open the door to something new, not because you went back to chase her, but because you moved forward and became someone she now has to see with new eyes. This is the power of the comeback. Quiet, unapologetic, undeniable. Real change isn't loud, it's consistent, it's subtle. It's built when no one is watching. When you no longer need immediate reward. When you become obsessed with who you're becoming, not what others think of you. That's the energy that transforms perception. When you walk with purpose, you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to remind anyone of who you used to be. You've outgrown explanations. You've outgrown permission. And because of that, your presence begins to speak louder than your past ever could. A woman doesn't just respond to how you make her feel now. She also responds to the man she sees you becoming. Growth is attractive. Direction is attractive. Inner elevation is magnetic. If you stay stuck in the story of rejection, you block yourself from the rebirth that could have made you powerful. You are not the version of you that got overlooked. You're the version that rose anyway, that kept moving, that let go of needing to be seen and focused instead on becoming undeniable. That mindset shifts your posture, your tone, your energy. And energy always tells the truth. You don't need revenge, you need refinement. Become so focused on your own evolution that her attention becomes irrelevant. And if it returns, it's not validation, it's recognition. Recognition of the man who refused to stay small, of the man who stepped out of his past and into his power. Not for anyone else, but because that's what self-respect demanded. The man you are becoming doesn't chase, he doesn't prove, he simply becomes. And when you live from that place, even the people who never saw you coming will start to feel you. That's the comeback. Quiet, strong, complete. Rejection is not proof of your inadequacy. It's a mirror reflecting who you were in that moment. And if you dare to look at it without ego, without defense, it becomes your greatest teacher. It shows you where you doubted yourself, where you hesitated, where you gave your power away for the chance to be seen. But once you stop fearing rejection, it loses control over you. You stop living in avoidance. You stop trying to play it safe. You begin to walk with a different energy, an energy that says, I'm not here to escape discomfort. I'm here to grow through it. Every man who has built real strength has been rejected, not once, but many times. And not just by women, but by life, by opportunity, by people he thought would support him. But the difference between those who stay small and those who rise is simple. One group used rejection as a wall, the other used it as a reason to sharpen the blade. You were never meant to stay in the same shape forever. You're meant to evolve, and evolution requires friction, resistance, pain. So if she turned away, let her. If she didn't see your value, good, because now you get to decide whether to collapse or to climb. The climb isn't about revenge. It's about revelation. It's about discovering the man who doesn't wait to be chosen, the man who chooses himself every single day, even when no one else does, especially when no one else does, because that's what builds character. That's what builds presence. A man who's faced rejection and still keeps his head high carries an energy that can't be replicated. He's been through the fire. He didn't run. He didn't fold. And because of that, he now walks with a calm that others feel before he even speaks. You don't need to get back at anyone. You need to get back to yourself. You need to remember that her disinterest is not a definition. It's a doorway, a chance to go inward, to level up, to become so aligned, so focused, so grounded that her rejection becomes irrelevant. Not because you've hardened, but because you've healed. When your validation comes from within, no one can take it. And when you walk through life with that certainty, your energy shifts. You're no longer afraid of the word no, because you know who you are even when no one claps for you. Let rejection refine you. Let it build your resilience, your discipline, your vision. And when you emerge from that process, you won't be seeking attention. You'll be commanding it. Not through force, but through frequency, through a presence shaped by pressure. That's where power is born, not in avoiding pain, but in turning it into purpose. You are not here to be broken by rejection. You are here to be rebuilt by it, stronger, wiser, sharper, and more magnetic than you've ever been. You will never attract what you truly want by pretending to be someone you're not. Authenticity is magnetic because it's rare. Most people hide behind performance, masks, strategies, hoping to gain favor by becoming what they think others desire. But in doing so, they dilute their power. The truth is, a woman can feel when you're disconnected from yourself. She may not know why, but something won't feel solid. Something won't feel trustworthy. Confidence isn't about being perfect. It's about being congruent. When your words match your energy, when your actions reflect your truth, when you're no longer trying to impress, that's when your presence starts to command attention effortlessly. You are most powerful when you stop asking for permission to be yourself. The moment you drop the act, the moment you let go of needing approval, something inside you aligns. You begin to attract people, opportunities, and yes, even romantic attention, not because you're trying, but because you're being real, being grounded, being whole. And the woman who's truly aligned with your energy will recognize that. She won't be drawn to the man who's trying to be liked. She'll be drawn to the man who already likes himself. This is the shift most men never make. They think attraction is about tactics, tricks, words, but it's not. Attraction is about vibration, energy, truth. And when you stand rooted in your own identity, when you're not chasing a reaction, when you're more committed to your growth than her opinion, that's when the game changes. You stop trying to get chosen. You start choosing, and that shift radiates from every part of you. It's in your eyes, your voice, your stillness. It speaks louder than any line ever could. You must understand something deep. You were never meant to convince anyone to see your worth. You were meant to embody it, live it. Let it be so obvious, so deeply woven into your behavior that anyone who interacts with you feels it before you say a word. That kind of energy cannot be faked. It can only come from inner alignment, from doing the inner work, from releasing the need to chase and rising into the strength of being. Stop trying to be what you think she wants. Start becoming what you respect. When you build your life around your own standards, when you elevate your mindset, your habits, your purpose, you change your frequency. And that change does more for attraction than any strategy ever could. Real confidence is silent. It doesn't beg. It doesn't force. It simply walks into the room and everything else rearranges. Let go of who you think you need to be. Step into who you truly are. Own your flaws, your strength, your journey. Because the most attractive version of you is not the polished one. It's the one that's real, honest, and unapologetically whole. From that place, you don't just attract attention, you attract connection, the real kind, the lasting kind. The kind built on truth, not performance. If you want to attract someone deeply, consistently, and powerfully, you must first master the energy you carry in silence. That invisible field you project into every space before you even speak, your posture, your focus, your breath, your thoughts. Women don't just respond to your words, they respond to the signal you broadcast when you enter a room. If that signal is scattered, needy, insecure, you'll repel more than you attract. But when your energy is stable, quiet, and rooted in purpose, you create gravity, a pull. And it's not what you do, it's who you are being that makes her notice. Stillness is one of the most underrated forms of power. It's not about being emotionless. It's about being unshaken. And that begins with how you manage yourself in your own mind. When your inner world is chaotic, the outer world mirrors that. But when you bring order to your thoughts, when you build a foundation of discipline, clarity, and self-control, people feel it. She feels it. You become someone who doesn't just react. You respond. You don't chase. You choose. You don't beg. You embody. And that contrast is magnetic. It creates curiosity. It makes her lean in, wondering why you're different. Presence cannot be faked. You develop it through practice, through learning how to sit with discomfort without reaching for distraction, through being honest with yourself even when it's hard, through choosing long-term self-respect over short-term validation. These are the invisible disciplines that make a man attractive on a level most can't understand. Because when you master your energy, you walk through life on your own terms. You stop seeking something outside to complete you. And that self-contained wholeness is what creates deep attraction. The reason most men never reach this level is simple. They avoid the silence. They avoid the inner work. They fill every quiet moment with noise, hoping something outside will fix how they feel inside. But attraction begins in the silence, in who you are when no one is watching, in how you treat yourself when the world is not validating you. When you commit to building that version of yourself, solid, grounded, calm, you become a presence people want to be near. Not because you're trying to impress, but because your energy gives them permission to feel safe, inspired, and seen. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to over-explain. When your presence speaks louder than your words, everything changes. She begins to sense something rare in you, emotional stability, quiet strength, unwavering self-belief. And that kind of man doesn't chase love, he attracts it. Not through force, but through frequency. Through the daily practice of becoming his highest self, whether someone notices or not. Because that's the path to lasting power. That's the shift that turns attention into connection. That's when attraction stops being a game and becomes a reflection of your truth. When you stop needing her to like you, everything changes. The moment you release the pressure to impress, you begin to breathe differently. You start to walk with a rhythm that isn't seeking permission. That shift, subtle yet powerful, is what makes you stand out in a world full of masks. Desperation repels, but detachment rooted in self-worth creates gravity. You're no longer trying to convince someone of your value because you've already convinced yourself. And that belief, that quiet certainty, is impossible to fake. It creates a kind of confidence that makes others pause and pay attention. The truth is, attraction thrives in space. When you're not clinging, not chasing, not seeking constant reassurance, you allow a woman to feel you, genuinely. Not your performance, not your potential, but your presence. That space gives her a chance to step forward, to meet you in the middle, to see you without the fog of pressure or expectation. And when she senses that you're not afraid to let go, that you can walk away without anger or neediness, she starts to question what makes you so grounded. That question becomes curiosity, and that curiosity becomes connection. You must understand that people are drawn not to the loudest energy, but the most self-assured. When you live in alignment with your values, when you no longer chase external validation, Your entire aura changes. You're not waiting for someone to complete you. You are already whole. And wholeness is rare. Wholeness is attractive. It says, I know who I am with or without your attention. And that unspoken strength speaks louder than any words could. It doesn't demand interest. It invites it. The ones who fail to attract are often the ones trying the hardest, trying to prove, trying to win approval. But real connection doesn't come from pressure. It comes from presence. And presence is born from peace. When you carry peace within you, you create safety around you. You become a place where a woman can feel seen without being judged, wanted without being owned, appreciated without being smothered. That balance of strength and openness is rare, and rare is irresistible. It starts by shifting your focus. Instead of obsessing over what she thinks of you, start asking yourself a better question. What do you think of yourself? Are you someone you'd admire, someone you'd trust, someone you'd follow? Because when you become the man you'd want to be around, you start attracting people who reflect that same energy back to you. Not because you're performing, because you're aligned, because your inner world is clean, steady, real. That's how you stop chasing attention and start commanding it, not through tactics or manipulation, but by elevating yourself until you become undeniable, until your energy speaks for you, until your presence does the work. This is the path. Build yourself so deeply that love, respect, and attraction are not things you hunt, but things you naturally receive. Respect begins with boundaries. A man without boundaries is a man without identity. When you allow others to walk over your values, your energy, your time, you send a message to the world that you don't believe you're worth protecting. And if you don't believe it, no one else will. Attraction isn't just about charisma or charm. It's about how deeply you respect yourself when no one's watching. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are doors that only open to those who are aligned with your standards. When you honor your standards, the right people feel it, and the wrong people remove themselves. Too many men fall into the trap of overgiving, overcompromising, and over-apologizing, not from love, but from fear. Fear of being left, fear of not being enough, fear of losing something they never truly had. But what you compromise to gain, you eventually lose anyway, because you cannot attract lasting connection from a place of self-abandonment. Real love does not grow from need. It grows from wholeness. You must be willing to walk away from anything that requires you to shrink, to fake, or to beg. That courage is what sets you apart. That refusal to settle is what gives you power. When you set a boundary, you are telling yourself, I am worthy. And when you hold it, even in the face of rejection, you are proving it. That moment of discomfort becomes a declaration of strength. And strength, not aggression, but calm certainty, is magnetic. Women are not drawn to compliance. They are drawn to conviction. They want to feel that you know yourself so well, you cannot be swayed by pressure or tempted by attention that comes without respect. It's easy to talk about self-respect. It's harder to live it, especially when emotions get involved, especially when desire clouds judgment. But this is where you must choose the long game over the short hit. Because every time you say no to what insults your worth, you build inner wealth. You reinforce the message that you do not chase, you choose. And that energy changes everything. You stop operating from fear. You stop settling for crumbs. You start showing up with clarity. That clarity makes you powerful. It creates an atmosphere where others either rise to meet your standard or quietly fall away. The beauty is, the more boundaries you set, the less explaining you do. Your life begins to speak for itself. You attract not just interest, but admiration. Not just attention, but alignment. Because you are no longer a man waiting to be chosen, you are a man who chooses. And that shift is not just attractive, it's unstoppable. You are not here to be convenient. You are here to be respected. So act like it, think like it, move like it. Because when you demand respect from within, the world cannot help but reflect it back. Confidence isn't loud. It's not about showing off, interrupting, or demanding to be seen. Real confidence is calm, steady, and grounded. It doesn't seek approval because it already knows its own value. When you walk into a room, people can feel it, not because of what you say, but because of what you don't need to say. That quiet strength, that unshakable sense of self is rare. And what is rare becomes magnetic. When a man operates from inner confidence, he changes the energy of every room he enters. He no longer competes for attention. He becomes the one attention naturally flows to. It all begins in your mind. How you speak to yourself determines how you show up. When you treat yourself with honor, discipline, and belief, the world mirrors it. But if your inner voice is filled with doubt, shame, or self-criticism, you will unconsciously seek validation to fill a gap that only you can close. No woman, no achievement, no amount of admiration can fill that space. Confidence is not a performance, it's a decision. A choice to trust your instincts, to value your experience, to stop waiting for someone to tell you you're enough and decide you already are. Confidence grows in silence, in the moments when no one is watching, when you keep your promises to yourself. It's in the discipline of your habits, the resilience of your thoughts, the intention behind your actions. It's not built overnight. It's earned, piece by piece, day by day. And it starts by showing up for yourself with the same consistency you wish someone else would show you. If you want loyalty, be loyal to your own vision. If you want love, start by loving the man you are becoming, not just when things go well, but especially when they don't. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. That's the old pattern, chasing validation, proving yourself, shrinking just to be accepted. Let it go. When you stop chasing, you start attracting. When you stop proving, you start leading. And when you stop doubting, you begin living. Confidence isn't about being perfect. It's about being real, being okay with who you are, flaws and all, and standing in it fully. That kind of presence doesn't just attract, it inspires. The truth is, confidence comes from alignment. When your thoughts, your words, and your actions match, you feel powerful. You don't feel torn, scattered, or unsure. You feel centered, clear, focused. And that clarity is what draws people in. Not because you're trying to be liked, but because you are fully alive in your truth. You're no longer a man trying to win someone over. You're a man walking his path. And on that path, the right people will recognize you, not by what you say, but by how deeply you live. So walk like you belong. Speak like you matter. Think like you're worthy. Because when you do, everything changes.